Today marks the 80th year since the liberation of the Auschwitz death camps set by Nazis, and it's important that we remind ourselves of the importance of this heinous and horrendous human event. It's a tragedy of human affairs. But it appears that this has been used and leveraged by mainstream news, politicians, for the most malicious reasons. On BBC today, right now, the entire homepage is focused on this. And yet the irony of wide-scale discrimination leading to a genocide has been lost on them, considering that currently we are seeing the aftermath of a genocide on the Palestinians in Gaza, a literal refugee camp in which the people of Palestine were ousted from their own indigenous lands in favor of some other people from another land, utilizing the tragedy of what happened in Nazi Germany, but also what happened across the world due to racism, of authorization, and just taking on and in the most racist way possible. Moshe Smolansky himself said, even prior to the establishment of the state of Israel, which is a settler colony state, that the Palestinians are a semi-savage people. And since the literal, the whimper of a movement that's hostile, obviously, to the oppression of the Palestinian people. Now, that's not to say that I'm in agreement with what happened on October 7th. Far from the reality of how I feel. I'm not one to respond in such a hostile manner. But that is a symptom of what has been happening to the Palestinian people, and that what happened on October 7th was merely a fraction of what's happened to the Palestinians. It's just the way that the mainstream news politicians have framed the situation, in that the one side cannot do any wrong if it's uttered by people in suits, and it is pursued by people in soldier fatigues, and it's done by people who look similar to Europeans, then it is fine. It is a-okay. It's given the shimmer, the facade of respectability, of kind of a rational sense. But then again, let's just think about what the Nazis were. They wore suits. They were given a shimmer, a sheen of respectability. They had the facade of rationalism, and many people in the West agreed with them. Even the royal family, for example, they gave Hitler salutes, in favor of Adolf Hitler, even despite the fact that Hitler himself was already uttering the most anti-Semitic rhetoric. So, what we're seeing here, when you take a step back, is that power itself, and how it's utilized, and how power is normalized, even to the detriment of our innermost, moral values. It can be completely normalized in eyes of majority if the media narrative is framed in such a way that makes it perfectly acceptable, and the media has to utilize all this, the white space of their broadsheet, the complete, the 3/4 of a homepage, and dedicate it so that there's no alternative voice. There's no, and it's not even an alternative voice, a voice that kind of respects the reality on the ground. There is a clear asymmetry of representation, and there is a clear distortion of the facts. And the facts should be made clear that the genocide that is perpetrated on Palestine is following a certain internal logic of us versus them, of racism, of inbuilt superiority complex, which disregards the humanity of the Palestinian people, which is this same exact logic that the Nazis used in order to wipe out the Jewish people. So it's a complete, irony, therefore, that the people who want to normalize the genocide of the Palestinian people are also using the leverage of the genocide against the Jews as a smokescreen, as a distraction from what is happening and has been happening in Gaza for more than a year. This is disgusting, and we need to work harder and remind people. We need to remind that obviously what happened to Jewish people during World War II was horrendous. Any kind of systematic racism, any kind of racism generally, is horrendous. But when the powers that be make it normal through their sheer power, through their scale of media enterprise, their scale of control of media and politicians, because of course politicians in our current climate, whether you want to believe it or not, whether you like it or not, they are heavily influenced by media, but by money. They're heavily influenced by the kind of the corridors of power. And what do I mean by that? They're heavily influenced by the fact that if, for example, you do not talk in a certain way and you do not frame a conversation in a certain way, you do not follow the certain policies that the media, the corporate interests want you to believe, then the media, in the form of news, the journalists, television programs, will often use the complete buying power, because of course in order to have any kind of media presence, you need money. And that's the reason why a lot of billionaires who are not particularly successful in media to begin with, they just have the money. They simply employ more successful people, or they may even buy up media companies like Elon Musk, or you saw Jeff Bezos. Of course, he owns the Washington Post. These people are able to influence minds of the everyday people who are not necessarily interested or not necessarily versed on what's going on in amidst the day-to-day affairs that most people are engaging in. Most people are just simply trying to get by. Most people are mostly just simply interested in leading a happy life, and so they might not necessarily be aware of what's going on a wider scale. And so the media and the news they're filling in the gaps, they're filling in the blanks, and they're doing so with a malicious intent in order to normalize a genocide that has happened. And they may even succeed in persuading the vast majority of politicians, even we don't even know how the International Court of Justice and International Criminal Court will apply the rules of international law with what's happened in Gaza, what is happening in Gaza. We don't know how it will be applied. And so, and we know that money speaks. Money speaks, not just because of billionaires being able to own huge swaths of media space, but because of and fill the airwaves, but also the fact that money speaks in terms of the corporate in a lobbying aspect of politicians. Just think of how the APAC works. The right wing say that they're America first, but that's a complete lie. It's America first, but also Israel first. And if Israel believes very strongly about something, they can lobby and create a kind of a narrative that makes it seem that protection of Israel is in defense of America. But that's not necessarily the case. You can just listen to these political scientists, from Jeffrey Sachs to John Mearsheimer, who say that it's not to the benefit of America to benefit to support and to literally fund Israel in its weapons delivery system and their own kind of a political kind of narrative, their own political goals and strategies in order to secure the safety of a nation that is built on stolen land. Let's talk about that. Anyways, more on this in the future. Please like, comment, and subscribe. That'd be very much appreciated. Thank you.